So the final step in creating your lasered project is to go online to app.glowforge.com. Now, in order to do this, you are going to need to get an invitation from me. So actually lasering your project is not going to be something that you have to do, but if it's something that you want to do, let me know so that I can send you an invitation to link onto this particular machine, and then you're going to be able to do this. Once you get this permission, you're going to be able to go to this page and you can see some of the things that I've loaded up already. And then there's a bunch of projects that Glowforge has already sort of included that you could try to crank out as well. Now, what I want to do is I want to upload the project that we just made in Illustrator. So I'm going to click on this upload button here, and I'm going to scroll down. And the project that we made is this class project logo. It looks like it should open up in Chrome, but really we're going to be okay opening it up here. So I'm going to click on this and then click open, or I could have double clicked it. And you can see that Glowforge down here is starting to put things up and getting ready to process it and put it together. So what we see now here is the camera in the laser itself. So there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of. First of all, this is material designed by Glowforge itself, and you can see this little sticker. The advantage of using this material is the scanner can read this sticker and it knows already that this is a medium draft board. So it knows all the settings that it needs to do, where to focus the laser and everything like that. If I were going to use something that wasn't made by Glowforge, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to come in here and tell it how thick the substrate is and stuff like that, and how hot the laser should burn and things like that. So it can be done, it's just a few extra steps. So if you're going to put in some cardboard or some paper or a piece of wood that isn't from Glowforge, just be prepared that there's going to be a little bit more work to do that. Now you can see here that I do have my project, and right now you can see this is the piece of material that I've got in there. I do have one engraving that's already happened, and you can see there's a couple engravings that have already been cut out. So what I need to do is I need to move this project somewhere where it's still going to be on the screen, and ideally I think you're going to want it purple like this so that when I click off to the side it's there. If I were to try to put it too low or something like that, see how it grays out, it's not going to let me do that. So if I try to squeeze it in here, that's not going to work. I could shrink it, so I could kind of pull this down, and now you can see I do have that purple, and so that would be okay to go ahead and do. Now, another thing to notice is that over on the side, I've got two different sort of processes here. If I were to just upload an image like this image here, all you would see is this engrave right there. But because we went into Illustrator, we also have this cut, okay? Now, both of these things I can customize even more. So if I click on the engrave, I can come over here and say, okay, let's try this as an HD photo and see what that looks like. So that looks a little bit rougher to me. So I might come back over here and say, let's see what it looks like as a 3D engrave. And that could be kind of interesting to try to do that. I'm not quite sure. I haven't tried the 3D engrave, but it could be an interesting little thing to try out. You could try a draft graphic, or you could try an SD graphic until you really find the look that you're looking for. The HD graphic seems a little bit fuzzy, so I might keep it on the standard graphic. Now, I could also click on this little button here, and I could start to tweak some things. So speed-wise, the slower that I make the speed, the deeper the laser is going to cut, because it's spending more time over the substrate, but at the same time it's going to take longer. So this speed is going to be set perfectly just because, the machine knows what this material is here. And then obviously the power is kind of the same thing. I could bring the power down a little bit if I didn't want to cut as deep, whatever. With grayscale, we do want to vary the power so that when we have a lighter portion of it, it's not going to burn quite as often. So we will vary the power as opposed to other these things. We could convert it to dots, and you can see it's kind of made it a little bit more dotty, like the old newspapers used to be. Or we could try patterns as well and see what that looks like. That looks really bizarre, but it could be interesting for some different kinds of burns. And we could change the pattern density as well. But for right now, we're going to do vary power and make it more of a grayscale, okay? And then these other things, obviously, we're going to keep the same. The lines per inch is just how often the laser goes back and forth, creating its thing. The higher the number, the more detail you're going to get. The focus height is how thick the substrate is. So this is 1/8 of an inch thick, this particular piece of wood. If I knew something was 1/2 inch thick, I'd have to change it in here. And then the number of passes means that right now it's just going to take one pass to cut everything out. If I had something thicker, I might need to take 2 or 3 passes to get it to cut out. But for now, one pass is going to be perfect, so we know that's all good. And I've got the same kind of things that I can do over here with the cut. Okay, so I could come over here, I could change the substrate here, all right, and change these different things. But it already knows that if you can see how much slower the speed is, right? It was at 106, it was at 1,000. So it's really slowed things down, but it's turned the power down a little bit as well. So we don't really need to customize this. We know that it's going to be a proof grade cut, so there's no reason for me to come in here and change all of these settings, all right? So we're just going to keep it here as the proof grade cut instead of doing these other things. Now, if I were good to go, I have this positioned where I want it. I'm going to try to give myself as much free space as I can. What I would do is I would come over here to where the print button is, and I would click on this. So it's going to start prepping things and going to look for any possible errors that might be out there. And if there are any things that it sees, it's going to let me know. You might be able to hear in the distance, the laser is starting to focus itself, getting itself set up and prepared for what it's going to need to do. And so we just sort of have to wait this out for a couple of seconds. And then depending on the size of what you're doing, it may take shorter or longer to prep everything. Okay, so now you can see it's sort of found where it needs to be, okay? And it's sort of calculating what path it needs to follow, what it's going to need to do, okay? If for some reason I want to bail on this, I could always click on cancel print here. What you don't want to do is close your web browser right now. You're going to want to leave everything open because this is all happening wirelessly. And if we lose this communication, then we're going to lose our print. So here we go. It's basically ready to go. So it's telling me it's going to take 12, almost 13 minutes. Okay. And now because I was tweaking the settings around, this is sort of where things sort of changed a little bit. So I might want to go back if I were actually going to print this and change more things. But basically, if I was ready to go, there's a button on the top of the Glowforge. It's going to be blinking. I would just go press that button and away we would go. I would start printing and in about 13 minutes, I would have my print back again. Okay. So that's basically it. That's how you're going to create a project that you could put on the laser. And when we come back to school, hopefully we'll have a chance to do so.